And an official good afternoon to everyone. This is our January lunch with the State Library. Our fabulous team of generalists are here today. Jacks and Jills of all trades, and actually many of them masters of some. So all of them masters of some. And so we've gone through this. What we set up here today is just kind of a general overview of some of the services that they offer in their districts and across the state. I always like to say, I hope you are eating something right now, that we're not taking you away from actual food. We won't be eating because we don't want you to see the spinach or blueberries stuck in our teeth. But we'll grab some nice hearty lunches afterwards, I'm sure. So just a quick little bit of background here. This is our district consulting team. You should be seeing their videos up on the screen as well. My name is Samantha Bowers. I'm the consultant for continuing education at the State Library. And I am not a district consultant, but I'm sort of here to just facilitate our conversation today. Every library in Iowa is represented by one of 6 districts, and these lovely folks you see in front of you help keep the trains running in that district, the library-related trains anyway. Bonnie McEwen, I'll go counterclockwise from Northwest, but Bonnie McEwen, Jay Peterson, Eunice Reisberg, Becky Heil, Marianne Morey, and Misty Gray, if we go around the state in a big circle. And they've all got lots of fun stuff to share with you today. Here are how those counties break down per district. A little bit of background here. The state library, well, the state used to have a system, and Bonnie can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it was called the Library Support Agency. Is that correct? What do we call these? No, not at all. Someone jump in and help me out here.
Library service areas.
The regional library system?
The regional library system. Yes, and at some point, the regional library system was folded under the auspices of the state library, and now we get to have these districts still to support Iowa's 543 libraries. And the folks you see here represent each of those districts. So here's the 6 topics we're going to cover. In some broad brushstrokes, this is fairly representative of a lot of what our district team does. I will say not included here, perhaps, being a sympathetic ear or a listening phone call. They're always here to support you and listen to what's going on in your district, to come out to your library when you've got something exciting going on, perhaps. But we'll start with these 6 topics. And so our first one up today, I'm going to turn it over to Misty, is new director orientation. So each consultant was asked 2 questions on this topic. What's one thing you wish libraries understood on this topic? And how do you like to approach conversations on this topic in your district? So our setup here today is that each person on the call is going to take like 4 to 5 minutes and answer each of those questions for you. So Misty, I'll let you kick us off with new director orientation.
Okay. So my name is Misty Gray. I'm the Southwest District Consultant. And, the one thing that I wish librarians and boards understood about the topic of new director orientation is that district consultants need to know when a new director has been hired. But I understand that this is kind of tricky. We need to know about new directors, but new directors need to know about district consultants. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, or catch-22. So I understand that. I would love to encourage library boards to take more of an invested effort in making sure that district consultants knew when a new director had been hired, so that we can reach out and make sure that they know that we're there to help them, help those new directors to get started. So that's what I really wish that librarians and their boards knew about new director orientation. It really can't take place until we know you're there. That new director, we can't do it until we know that the director's there. And then how I like to approach new director orientations in my district. And of course, I do want to say that each district consultant handles new director orientations a little bit differently. But I like to schedule a face-to-face meeting. That's my preference. I really like to, get into the same room with that new director to establish a relationship. Zoom works too, and we have done Zoom new director orientations amongst our district staff. But like I say, I just really prefer to be in the room with that new director to talk to talk to them for the very first time. And I do like to take time explaining the programs offered by the state library, and I like to answer any immediate questions that new director has. And of course, I always encourage directors to ask me questions anytime. It's really my job to help answer those questions, as it is with all the district consultants. But this is my first opportunity to really introduce myself, invite those questions, and invite that relationship to continue when I go back to my office. It's really important to me that I am that asset for those new directors as they get started.
Great, Misty. Thank you. We'll take questions. If you have any questions as we go today, drop those in the chat. I know we're going to have a tight timeline, so I'm going to keep us moving. But if we have questions, we'll address them at the end. Otherwise, you'll follow up with your district consultant, the person you see on the call here today. Next up, I think, is Mary Ann from the Central District.
All right. Well, one thing that I wish libraries understood on the topic of city relations is that the library and the city are on the same team. You both have the ultimate goal of meeting the needs of your residents and your community. And it just grieves us, those of us who are district consultants, when there's bickering and backstabbing and tug of wars going on. So the library and the city are on the same team. And that's, I think, a vital thing to remember and to try to work toward. And how do I like to approach this conversation? Well, I talk about it every time I go to libraries to present trustee training, which is something that all of the district consultants do on a regular basis. We not only meet with new directors, but we provide staff training and board education. And when I go and do those trustee training sessions, I like to use Bonnie's analogy of a sports team. She focuses specifically on a football team because she's a football fan. So the analogy there is that the board's, or the city's role rather, is as the franchise owner. The city established the library through its ordinance, the city ordinance that basically created the library. The city appoints and approves the appointments to the library board, determines the annual appropriation to the library, as well as other city services, and provides financial reports to the library board. The board's role then is as the head coach. They develop policies, hire and evaluate the library director, oversee the library's budget, and they plan for the future and advocate for the library throughout the community. So that's how I like to approach the topic. It's an easy to understand analogy. And again, you're all on the same team, so just play well together.
I imagine there's some library fields or staffs out in the state that feel a little bit like the offensive line, just getting slammed into all the time. But here's hoping sometimes you're the star quarterback and you get those fun moments as well. Our next topic is staff and board development, as Marianne just mentioned, and Bonnie is going to take this one for us.
Yes, well, as Misty was talking about director orientations, it seems to me that that's where library learning starts for so many people. That's where you'll hear more about the endorsement program, and that's when you will find out all that the state library has to offer you as you're learning on the job. When it comes to staff and board development, district consultants can provide a variety of continuing education opportunities and with corresponding continuing education credits. That's a bonus. We have lots of learning options throughout the year, from in-person gatherings like director roundtables. Those are typically held every year in May, so those will be coming up in the spring. We also are players in an annual event we call the Learning Circuit. That typically happens every year in September. And scattered throughout the year are closer to home events like county meetings, like staff training days, either for individual libraries or staff training days for all the staff in any given county to come together in one location. Mary Ann mentioned too that we do a lot of board training as well. So please remember that and pass along that invitation to your library boards. We're happy to help with your board education needs. And again, we can respond to individual library board requests for continuing education programs, or we can encourage library boards to come together for county-wide programs, bringing all the trustees together in any given county. So my answer to that question of what do I wish libraries knew or understood, it's kind of more like what I wish more libraries felt. And that is to kind of feel the way I feel about learning. I think that learning really is most effective and actually most fun when we come together. Now, the coming together doesn't have to be in person, although we love doing it that way for sure. The coming together can also be done online in our Zoom rooms. That's a wonderful option, especially at this time of year in these crazy winter weather months. But even when weather is not an issue, we encourage your boards and staff to come together for watch parties at your libraries. Your boards and staff can come together to your library's meeting room and watch a webinar together. So I think coming together, whether in person or online, makes learning more effective. You can talk with each other about what you're hearing. And I think it's more collaborative learning space, and it actually makes the whole effort more fun and much less of a solitary effort when you can come together. So give us a call if you would like us to join your county meeting with a continuing education topic. If you would like to explore doing a county-wide staff development day, let us know that too if you've never done that before. We can help you get that started. And if you want to explore doing a county-wide board education program of some kind, if you've never done that before, let us know that too. Just give us a call to get the ball rolling, and we'll be happy to talk more about it.
Fabulous. And I think, Bonnie, many people who work in libraries share your love of learning, and that's why we're here. So great to pass that on to our staffs and boards as well. Our next topic is space utilization, and Jay Peterson has presented on this for the State Library and has presented ILA. So he's our man for the space here. Jay, take us away. I should have
Thanks,
called you a
Sam.
spaceman. What was I thinking?
Spaceman.
Jay's our spaceman.
Yes, and we just concluded our space utilization grants for the year. We've been doing space utilization grants for a long time, and we kind of did a limited run of them this year and are kind of reassessing the program. So that is an option as well. But I don't want to spend all my time talking about that. About the grants necessarily, but what libraries understood about space planning is, that they have ownership of, when they're the director of the library, they have ownership of the library, and they can experiment. I mean, that's their job. Your job as a director is to kind of try new things, implement new things, what works better in the space. And this really goes along with new director orientation, because a lot of time we have a new director and they go, what do I do with this or that in the library? And sometimes it really helps to just start small, move one thing, move things around to make space work better for how you think your vision of the library is going to operate. And the classic example of this is kind of like, there's a big stand there that's holding a giant unabridged dictionary, and we can't move that unabridged dictionary. People use it all the time. Well, do they really? Does it need to be in the center of the library? There's a lot of libraries I've walked into that have that dictionary on a big stand, and you can put it to the side, try it out, see how it goes for 6 months, and realize that no one's going to ever ask about it again. And so just looking really hard at the workflow and how your library is operating, making space as best you can in the it doesn't always have to be expensive. That's what I'm trying to get at too. So when I start to talk to libraries about this, you know, kind of the same thing, take ownership. And a big one that is hard to, when they start out to get at too, the two things go hand in hand of looking at your, looking at your physical materials, where they're all at, how the shelves are oriented, how your DVD cases are oriented, whatever is there, you know, what can you move around, you know, what can you make to make the space look different and bigger? And there's a, you know, it's counterintuitive, you know, and kind of how you think about libraries, to think that less is more, but really less is more. The more you free space up on the shelves or free space up in the areas, the more fresh and inviting a library can look. And that just takes, you know, that doesn't cost anything. You're just moving around materials in a lot of cases. You know, you don't necessarily have to weed everything out of the library, but that can do a lot for your shelves. And that's one of the first things I talk about is, okay, how do these shelves look? What can we do about thinning them out, putting books facing forward, making things look more like a retail experience? So those are big things we kind of look at when we do space, how we use our space in our library. But there's, of course, a lot more we could go into, and, you know, here in 4 or 5 minutes, but those are just kind of my starting points where I kind of start talking to librarians about this topic. So.
Very cool. I imagine this is one where the conversation might start with an in-person visit beyond some of these other things, which we start with the phone call.
I have had people hold iPads and sweep them around the library. That can kind of give you a sense, you know, that does work.
Can kind of give you a sense of vertigo maybe, but
yeah,
little virtual tour. And our district consultants, I will also say, are out in the field all the time. So even if you are new in your library and are just learning the space, if you're new and anxious to get started on this, you may be able to call your district consultant and say, remember that storage room we have in the way back? And they have been to your library. They probably remember the storage room. And so even if you're feeling like they can't get out to visit you right away, they'll still be a great resource for you. Next is human resources, which is another tricky topic that our consultants often tackle. And our very own and very brave Eunice is here to walk us through how to handle some of these issues in your library.
Good afternoon, and I noticed you shied away from the last name the second time,
I
Sam.
never get it right.
You, but it is Reesberg.
Anyway, I was going to ask how long you had to look up how to spell your own last name, because I've worked with you for over 4 years now, and I still have to look up your own last name to spell it properly. So I do apologize, Eunice.
That's okay. And I cheated. My best friend in high school's last name was Grease, so I had a starting point when I got married, and well, before that, when I started dating the guy. Yeah, I changed from having a nice, easy last name like Miller to one that like Reesberg that nobody can spell. So on to the topic at hand. The biggest thing I wish libraries realized with human resources is that those personnel reviews that you have to do need to be tied to the job description in hand. It's really hard to evaluate if somebody's doing the job if you aren't working with the description. So do that. Where I like to start with these things is, let's take a look at your personnel policy. What does it say about the process you're supposed to follow? Instructions are good, right? If it says things like you need to use a form that the city says, it's like, well, but that doesn't really follow the job description. Well, make adaptations. Sometimes you got to do the form, but you need to add on to it a little bit. That's okay. And the other thing is this is all much easier if your job descriptions are current. If they actually describe the job that the person is supposed to be doing, it's a lot easier to say, yes, they're doing it correctly. And since I'm also the most known for brevity on this panel today, that's really all I had to say.
Eunice does often win the brevity award, but come back on Friday, or in a couple Friday week, I guess, and Eunice gets to talk for a whole half an hour. She's going to do a technology webinar for us, and this is where I know she can shine. But Eunice also, these are very great places to start, so thank you for taking that on. Becky promised me, who is Becky not known for brevity, promised me 4 minutes on this, and that should bring us right about up to time. So Becky, I will let you take it away on strategic planning.
I swear, I even have a timer going to make sure I got this done. So what I want people to know is you shouldn't plan because the state says you have to. Writing a plan is how you get from where you are to where you want to be. It's as simple as that. Your plan is for your library and your community, not to satisfy some state requirement. That's I think the most important thing. So the way I kind of approach this is I want that librarian to understand that. Once they understand it, then I kind of outline the process for them. All of the district consultants were trained on the PLA Strategic Planning for Results model. Now that's called Strategic Planning for Public Libraries, and most of us use some version of one of those two models. When I try to explain the process, the simplest way is the first thing I want the board usually and staff to do is identify those stakeholders because we need community input. We want to get at people who represent various groups in your community and can understand the wants and needs of those groups. Then the second thing that we do is some kind of data gathering. It might be phone calls with those stakeholders, it might be focus groups, or it could be surveys. But we're really trying to get at that data gathering piece. We also use census as we're working through that. And the reason we're doing that is we want to identify those community needs. We want that group to prioritize how the library is going to respond to that. What can the library do well in this planning cycle? We want to answer the question, how is the library going to respond to the needs that they identified? Another thing that we sometimes use those groups for is to have those community groups brainstorm potential library programs and services. It can be really fun to let the community in on this part. Talk to them about a need that you have in your community. How do they see you responding to that? Then the next part of that process is the goal setting. And that typically is a board process, certainly with input from director and staff. We want to know the big picture for that when we're writing goals. How are people's lives going to change because of how the library has responded to this particular need? After that, the staff steps in, they write objectives. They will write very specific ones. We talk about dates, we talk about times, we talk about how do we measure this. And that can be based on ideas from the staff, from the director, and from the community as they were kind of talking about those ideas they would like to see you do. The last piece is implementation. You'll work the plan. We also want to assess the outcomes. How are you going to know if you were successful with those objectives? This is the process that most of us use, kind of walking through those steps. But the cool thing is we are all willing to work with you and create a process that meets your needs. As an outsider, then we can help with whatever pieces you need help with. Whatever capacity you need us, we're there to kind of support you in that process. And a reminder, we haven't really talked about this. Don't forget that all of the things that the state library provides in terms of consultant services are free. This isn't something that you have to pay us for, and it can be a huge expense if you hire an outside person to come in and do this. So we like to make sure that you know that we can do that. The most important thing that I want people to remember, your plan is going to be unique to you and reflective of your library and your community. I did it. 3 minutes
Nice
and 48 seconds.
What a good point that these services are all free. And I also always remind people that, your district consultant might not have all the answers right away. They might, because these folks are all extremely talented and extremely good at what they do. But it also could be a great case where they would say, let me look into this, or let me connect you with another resource. I might need to talk to the law librarian. Maybe this is really a question for your city attorney. But if you're sort of wondering, hey, am I on the right track here? The folks you see in front of you are definitely going to be your best place to start. I'll just close with this little slide here. I hope that none of you have this phone in your office, but it was what came with the deck. Some of you do, and then you're very cool, and I want to come visit you. My husband might want to come visit you, but stay in touch. Each of the districts has a newsletter that goes out regularly where you can learn about district news. You can stay in touch with some of those events like Bonnie was talking about, the director roundtables and the learning circuits that will happen in person in your district. And then your district consultant also holds regular office hours, so you can pop in if you've got a random question. You can go just to vent or hear what other libraries are doing or check in on other directors in your districts as a way to network and stay connected for sure. So we'll distribute these slides via Iowa Learns, but this is a live link to your district consultant, to our district consultant page, and there are links to join the newsletter from there. Otherwise, I'm sure you can also contact your district consultant directly to be added to the newsletter as well. Yes, talking about summer reading ideas, programming ideas, all kinds of things. Very, very productive time. So that is my last slide. We have 2 minutes remaining. You guys, I cannot believe we did this in half an hour. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of all of us. I never thought we'd get this done, but if people take anything away from this webinar, I hope it's that we are here to support you and help you and listen to you and help your library be the best library that it can be in your community. And these 6 topics that we covered are 6 of the ways that we can do that, 6 plus a few bonuses. Some of them were kind of topics smushed together, but we are here to help. You know where to find us, and I hope that you reach out to us with any questions. So any closing comments or thoughts in our last minute together here, folks?
Just a reminder that even though we each took an individual topic, we're all capable of helping with all of these topics in
Yes.
our districts.
Exactly right. So yeah, you don't have to call Becky with your strategic planning questions or Misty with your onboarding questions. Just call your district consultant about any of these things, or even other things. It's just such a great starting point for the state library. We do also, it's worth mentioning when we talk about district services, have library resource technicians that support you in things like website development, email issues. So if you're having some of those problems with state library services, but you feel like they weren't addressed today, you can also start with your district consultant who can get you to the right person at the state library. But don't feel like, oh, they didn't talk about our website at all. That's because these folks don't necessarily support your website, but they do know the person who does. So we've got a lot of irons in the fire here, and we're here to help. So with that to say, thanks for attending our webinar today. I hope you learned something about our generalists here, our lovely district consultants who are here to help you out. We will post a recording of this webinar to the State Library's YouTube channel and to Iowa Learns for CE credit. Give me just a minute to take attendance today, and you'll have the evaluation available to you for credit for your live attendance today as well. Thanks to our district team for being here. Thanks to you all for attending. Stay safe and warm, okay? Okay, bye-bye, everyone.